Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time we'll talk to young professionals and talk about recent college grads and some things that you can do to land that first job out of college. One of the challenges that I run into, particularly with young people, is I don't really know what I want to do. I mean, you might have a liberal arts education, you may have something that's somewhat generic, and well, let's face it, you come out of college and you say, okay, what do we do now? Well, you've got a few things that you need to consider as you begin to look to try to target. And by target, we can talk industry, we can talk job or function, and also location. So you've got three variables here. There may be other ones too, but I mean those are three of the main variables that most people look at. And a question I get asked from time to time is it better to work for, let's say, a large company or a smaller company? Is it better to work in a large city or in some rural, smaller area? Should I stay at home or in my local community or go somewhere else? So I get those questions. Let's try to tackle those a little bit. For one, let's talk about size of the city and location. Now, when I graduated from a small college. I stayed and worked in that small town for a couple of years and then moved on to some other things. Looking back at it, the cost of living was lower. As a young guy, there wasn't as much to do on the fun side. In talking with other people who had started out in larger cities, I think if I had to do it over again, I probably would have gone the larger city route for a couple of reasons. One, the social aspect of it, and let's face it, when we're at that point in life, that's an important aspect. But from a job standpoint, there were fewer places for me to go in my field in a smaller area, geographic area. You work in a large city, granted there's the traffic, there are the cost of living issues, but you also have a lot of options. And so I think that's important. And I'd consider, if I had to do it over again, I'd consider living in a little bit larger area. Again, personal preference. Something else to weigh not only is the city, but the size of the company. What sort of size of company should I target? Is it better to try to target large companies or smaller companies? Now, things have changed over the generations. I think back to when my father was employed. It was pretty common for one person to work in the same company for most of, if not all, their career, and simply that's not the case anymore. So I think as you begin to look at companies and you try to decide small versus large, for one, there's no job security with large companies. For that matter, there's no job security really anywhere you go in this day and age. But with a large company versus a small company, the pros of a large company, you're going to run into things such as perhaps more dollars spent on training. So that's important. I mean, let's look at it from the long-term perspective. As you look ahead, the job you have today is positioning you for the job you'll have in the future. Because in reality, the company and the job you have today, you're not going to die doing that. So look to the company to see what sort of training and management development, ongoing training, that sort of thing that they may offer. So a large company can give you the opportunity, in theory, to be able to move within the organization, to cross-train, to get into some other areas that you may find are very appealing to you. As a matter of fact, as you get out of school and take that first job, you may find you don't much care for that. And if you're in a small company and that's all you're hired to do, you're going to need to leave the company. But you may find in a larger company that you've got a greater ability to move around laterally and to be able to try other things as you get older. But again, large company, you tend to get lost. You're part of a large entity, just a number, that sort of thing. And opportunity for advancement, yeah, it's there. It's also there in small companies too. And for the most part, small companies is where the growth lies. For the most part, you've probably all heard this. Small business accounts for the great majority of job growth. So keep that in mind. Small companies give you a chance to ideally try a number of things. Small companies, you have to make do do more with less. And so you've got that opportunity to come in and really get a chance to see the entire organization more so than you would if you were a tiny little cog in a huge, huge wheel. From a compensation standpoint, I don't know that there's a great difference. Sometimes larger companies will have better benefits. They may offer a little more money. Oftentimes large companies exist in larger cities. So logically, they would almost have to pay more to attract the talent that they need. Small companies can offer, as I mentioned, the training. They offer you the chance to wear a number of hats. And if I had to do things over again, I started with small companies and predominantly have worked in small companies all my life, with one or two exceptions where I've been exposed to large entities. I like the smaller company aspect. You get to know your manager, the owner. You get to, the doors are more open, it seems like, so you're able to get more information. Again, no job, no company is perfect, but those are some options that you might want to weigh. And there was one other aspect we want to talk about. We'd mentioned a little bit about geography and company. The other is industry and how to target an industry. What sort of questions should you ask? And that goes back more to the networking side of things. You probably have talked to, while you're in college, probably talked to your guidance folks, the advisors and such, to try to get a sense for industries that are growing and ones that you might find attractive. And I don't have all the answers to this. I don't know, in your specific case, where you might find the most fulfillment. But I do think it's important to get out and talk to people in those different industries. So if, let's say, pharmaceutical sales is of interest to you, what I'd do is I'd go talk to my local doctor's office and I'd talk to the office manager, and from there I'd find out who calls on you. And I'd make a point to connect with that person and ask them if you can talk to them for a little bit, find out what life is like doing that. Same holds true for virtually any sort of job. The worst thing you can do is just sit there and just willy-nilly answer ads in hopes that somebody calls you and offers you a job. I say worst because you feel like you have no direction, and when somebody interviews you and asks, why do you want to work for us, you're going to have to lie to them. You have to make something up, because the only reason you wanted to work there is because they have a job opening. So try to do some homework. Talk to people who are employed in different fields, and from there you can begin to formulate a plan. A plan meaning this industry or these industries look good to me. A location plan, because with the internet you can go on and find companies and their locations. So you've got size of company, industry, and location. Those are all things that you can factor in, and hopefully some of what we just shared will give you some guidance as you begin to start that first job out of college. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of our Edge Library series. Thank you for watching. My name is Randy Wooden.